Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Ooh, it's a hot one out there today, Danny. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 3 of the Brunton Bugle, a podcast focusing on the trials and tribulations of Carlisle United Football Club. From Matty Robson to Shane Reddish and Stephen Halliday to Philip Hadland, we've got it covered. As usual, I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, and this week it's Dan McLennan. Dan, how's it going?
Not too bad, as warm as most people are. And here's a little heat-related fact.
Go on.
People say they're sweating like a lizard, but lizards don't actually sweat.
Oh, there's a top fact here. Well, I was going to say to you there, I'm sweating like Anthony Gerrard in the queue at Greg's at closing time. That's what I'm like right now.
Poor Anthony.
You know what? He's a big lad, but he was a good player. Absolutely no doubt about that at all. So it's been a month since we last did an episode, isn't it, Dan? And a fair bit has happened in that time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously heard about the players who'd been offered contracts. We've had 8 new signings. The club have revealed a bit of the season ticket info and sort of general info for getting in. The new kits are out.
2 trialists.
Yeah, 2 trialists, and then obviously the never-ending Macclesfield Stevenage saga and Harrogate coming up. So plenty to talk about.
Well, funny enough, you've basically just rounded up everything we're going to talk about today. I was about to do that. But yeah, so coming up on this episode, we have got a wide range of topics to talk about. So general squad news, we'll look at the captain's announcements, the contracts that were turned down, and the trialists. The 8 new signings, Danny, you've been looking into those.
Yeah.
Season tickets are set to go on sale. New kits are out. Harrogate have been promoted. Macclesfield relegated. Stevenage is staying up by some miracle. And we've got a few little bits of former Carlisle United player news as well to bring you. We'll also be revealing at the end of the show the winner of the Walling Carlisle United bucket hat competition, which we ran on social media. Remember that you can still pre-order the next batch of those bucket hats, which are available at footballbubbles.com. But first, before we start, a bit of a new feature, Danny. We're going to try something different. We're going to open the episode with a set of quiz questions taken from the official Carlisle United quiz book. So this book came out in 2009, was endorsed by the club and written by professional quiz writers. You can pick up a copy on eBay. Danny, you've got a bit more on that, haven't you?
Yeah, I've noticed, I keep an eye on eBay quite a bit for various Carlisle memorabilia, and this book seems to have suddenly, several copies seem generally available at a decent price, usually around a £5 or so.
Yeah.
And also on this day, Carlisle United, someone must have found a few copies in a warehouse somewhere, because there's several copies of that available as well.
Yeah, of course, that one was written by Andy Hall, the club's media officer, quite a few years ago. It's not a bad little book, actually, but my favourite thing about it, Danny, is the back cover. It's got a list of endorsements, and you would never guess who some of these ones are on here. So we'll go from the top down. I think it's the best way to do it. In fact, no, we'll go from the bottom up. So at the bottom, the first one, this is an obvious one. It's John Gorman, ex-Carlisle United legend, of course, a legend of the game generally. And he says, an interesting study of Carlisle United, a team very close to my heart. So many great characters and players have played for this famous team. I wish the book well. It's strange wishing a book well, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Next up, guess who this one is? The Brunton Park Bible, a gem of a book about a gem of a football club.
That's a very cheesy line, but I've no idea who.
Robbie D of CFM fame.
Yeah, he's known for his cheesy lines on the radio, isn't he?
Yep. Next up, engage your brain, your memory and intuition, and 118 pages of history and learning about your club. Brilliant. If you haven't got a copy, you're not a supporter.
That's quite an in-depth review, isn't it? It's almost an academic type review, isn't it? I wonder if it's someone who's quite well educated.
I would hope so. It's Michael Grade, the former head of ITV and head of BBC in the past.
Right.
Bit of a strange one. This is one of my favourites, I think. If you're a real Carlisle fan, can you really resist this test? Find out how much of a fan you are with some brain teasers for only the most knowledgeable follower.
That could be anyone.
Carol Malia from BBC Look North.
This is a very random list, isn't it?
The last three, you'd probably never get them, but basically, Richard Eccles from Carlisle Living magazine, Pete Moss from CFM, and Steve Johnson from the Times and Star. A real weird bunch of things there, isn't it?
Yeah, different.
Yeah. So anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to start off and we're going to ask you some questions, Dan.
Okay.
We'll see how many you can get. Let's test your knowledge. So
Okay.
I want you to pick a number from 1 to 4, and that'll decide which set of questions you get.
I'll go for number 4.
Okay, which questions are you going to get? I hope you're not looking at your copy of this book, by the way.
No, it's upstairs in a box with all the others.
Okay, yeah, you might do all right with this one, actually. Yeah, you might do okay. Right. So this question is, this one is, where did they go? So the questions basically are, you get a name of a player who played for Carlisle, but where they went when they left Carlisle. And now this is the first time around. So if they've left more than once, it's the first time. So first up, Bill Shankly.
That would be Preston North End.
I believe that's right. I should have the answers ready, really, shouldn't I? I'm going to ask you the questions. Good idea. Correct, Preston North End.
Not too bad.
Number 2, Scott Dobie.
Oh, Scott Dobie.
First time around this.
West Brom.
Yes. For I think it was like 150,000,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
a measly figure, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, Peter Beardsley.
Vancouver Whitecaps.
Correct. Number 4, Kenny Lowe.
Did he go either Darlington or Hartlepool? One of those. I'll go for the Seaside Hartlepool.
Correct. Hartlepool is the right answer. Number 5, Lee Peacock.
Mansfield Town. Because
Correct.
from there he went to Man City, didn't he?
Yeah, for stupid money. And then on to Bristol City for more stupid money. Number 6, Tom Cowan.
If memory serves me right, I think he possibly went to Barrow.
Yes, he did go to Barrow, that's correct. Number 7, is the easy one, this one, Matt Jansen.
Crystal Palace.
Number 8, Des Byrne.
Right, I'm sure he went back to Ireland from Carlisle. And for some reason, St Patrick's Athletic is in my head. So I'll go for them.
You're right. St Patrick's Athletic is the right answer. You're getting a bit nervous there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Number 9, Joe Laidlaw.
Ooh, now this one, obviously before my time. No idea with this one off the top of my head.
The answer for this one's Doncaster Rovers.
Right.
And finally, number 10, and it is the first time round, of course, Paul Reed.
Glasgow Rangers.
That is correct. So that's 9 out of 10. Not a bad start, Danny. Not a bad
Not
start
bad,
at all.
not bad. I'll take that.
We'll keep that one going, and obviously people can play along as they're listening. We might do different next time. Maybe we'll ask you the questions at the start, and then we'll give you the answer at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But yes. So anyway, Dan, let's get stuck into the main part of the show. First up, a general roundup of some of the squad news from the last month since our last regular episode.
It's easy to get confused with names. I'm not going to. Preston turns on the edge of the box. It's going to fall. It has. It's fell to Coyote. Shot off. It's a goal. Well, I'm not going to argue with the finish. It ended up in the back of the net, but the Alfreton Town defenders have all their heads have dropped because they should have done better. But Coyote capitalised on a ball that came through from Preston, and it just trickled into the back of the net. And Gateshead find themselves 1-0 up here.
Here's Riley. Going round to Ripley and tripped by the Motherwell goalkeeper. That's a penalty. Well, the goalkeeper getting away with just a yellow card for that infringement. Riley will take the spot kick himself and score to put Hearts 3-0 in front. It's Riley's 5th goal of the season, his 2nd from the penalties.
Okay, Dan, we're back now. First up, contract news. No major surprises there, really, was there? The news that came out of the last few weeks that Byron Webster, Jack Bridge and Gethin Jones have turned down their deals.
No. as we sort of discussed last time out, given the sort of time frame that had occurred, the silence, it was fairly obvious that they weren't going to stay. Indeed, was it Webster appeared on one of the podcasts? And
yes, it was an interview, wasn't it?
Yeah, he basically said that he turned down his deal, which wasn't the most professional way for us to find out. But again, like we say, no surprise.
No.
Jones, obviously, we offered him the 18-month in January. He just took to the end of the season. Given how good a performer he was for us, it's no surprise that he has moved on. And obviously, Bolton buying up the best players they can, aren't they? So
yeah, I mean, it's a good move for him, isn't it? And I think we did say last time that he was taking a bit of a gamble, wasn't he, in turning down the 18-month deal, and he was maybe lucky to get the 12 months for us, but fair play to him. I think it's a 2-year deal at Bolton, and he's backed his own ability, and can't really knock him for that, can you?
No, he'll have a good deal, probably on better money and closer to home, so you can't blame the lad.
No, not at all. And Jack Bridge, the final one, maybe a little bit surprised to see him turn it down, but I wonder if locations played a big part in that. He's had his 12 months with us, but maybe he just doesn't feel settled up in the north, and he's actually turned up on trial at Bristol Rovers, already left them. Didn't last very long.
Yeah, I'm going to say he was only there a week or so, seemingly. And is it Southend possibly linked with him now?
Well, he started off at Southend, didn't he? That was his first club, so I think he's been linked with a move back there, and to be honest, they're potless at the moment, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. And have they actually announced their manager yet? I know the other day they were down to sort of a 2-man shortlist. So
I've not seen anything. So
I would imagine it'll probably depend on who gets the job there.
Yes, but I'd also imagine the fact that they're just going to be desperate players, and someone like that wanting to play for them, they might just give him a deal, whether the manager's there or not. Really, that might be one of those sort of ones. But yeah, good luck to the three of them. And I'd imagine with Webster, I said this on the last episode, I'd not be amazed if he turned up at Harrogate Town. To be brutally honest, I think that's a logical move for him, really. Considering
he lives in the area, he's got the experience, and it's on his doorstep. So, and we've noticed Harrogate have started announcing signings this week.
In fact, they beat us to a player that, we think they might have beat us to a player we were keen on, Connor Kirby, but in a position where we're fairly well stocked already, so maybe it was one where we decided we weren't interested in.
Yeah. I mean, the only official sort of news on that was one of the famous Twitter rumour sites, but there's usually a little bit of truth on some of them. Yeah, it could be that we looked at him, and then we've been offered others and thought, no, he can go elsewhere. We're not bothered.
Yeah. Okay, well that's those three out of the way. Ta-ra, lads. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. Let's move on to players who are still out of the club, and more importantly, our new captain and vice captain. So Beach sort of announced this before the new signings arrived, which suggests to me he wanted someone who was already in the club and already settled and established. And the two players he's picked for captain is Nick Anderton and vice captain Aaron Hayden. No real major surprise there, Dan?
Given that our longest serving players are Mellish and Hayden, I think Hayden was always going to be in the mix. And I think it was fairly clear when Anderton came in, he was very much Chris Beach's man. He came in, started playing straight away, and he was looking quite sharp before the lockdown. Yeah. And he's at that age now. I think he's 24 off the top of my head. He's at that age where he's actually one of the more senior players in our squad, which we'll come on to later.
Yeah.
But no, he strikes you as a captain type, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing is, of the players who've arrived since, we'll obviously get onto all their names in a bit, but the only one you'd probably look at as a captain potentially would be McDonald, I suppose. But I think you've got to give it to someone who's already at the club. And like you said, Anderton's really impressed the way he's held himself and the way he's played since he arrived. And it was interesting to read his comments about his time at Barrow and playing alongside Danny Livesey, who was captain there, and how much he's influenced him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously at the start of Anderton's career. I think he was about 19-year-old when he was at Barrow. And
he left Preston, didn't he?
Yeah, I think a bit of Livesey's rubbed off on him, which if you can perform at half a level Livesey did in his best years for us, it'll be good for the club.
And yeah, of course, Aaron Hayden as vice captain, done incredibly well, hasn't he, to come back from looking like one of those players you sign and never really use and ends up leaving after 1 year, to a player who's obviously now tied down to us for I can't remember if it's the end of the season or next season, but he's a player who Beach really believes in and looks like he's been playing at League Two level for years, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously when he came in last summer as a trialist, he obviously impressed enough to get the deal, and then he didn't really feature, did he? I think he played in a couple of the trophy games and the odd sub appearance and whatnot, and then all of a sudden he change your manager, he comes in and he took his chance. You talk about when a new manager comes in, it's a fresh start for everyone. Some players step up to the plate, and Aaron Hayden certainly did that, didn't he?
Yes, definitely. Well, there you go. That's the captain and vice captain for the season. I think they're pretty decent choices. Can't really argue too much with them. Let's move on to some staff changes. New keeper coach. I say new. He was here for sort of the back end of last season, if you want to call it that. Steve Collis, who was with Beach at Rochdale, wasn't he? Experienced keeper who's played at this level for years. Retired a few years ago, I think now. He's a big fella, isn't he? When I've seen him on the touchline and in the few games he was at the club last season. No real shock there. I think everyone expected that one to be confirmed, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously when he came in, was it about January he came in roughly?
I think he did, yeah. Craig White mysteriously disappeared off the scene and then unceremoniously was let go, wasn't he?
Yeah, and obviously in that situation you need someone quickly, you turn to people you know. The lad's obviously done enough in those several weeks he was here. And we know he's got one keeper to work with. Hopefully a second will be added, which we'll come on to later. Yeah. But no, Chris Beach obviously trusts Steve Collis, so let's see how he does.
Yep, and obviously the other appointment is in a physio role. Big shoes to fill, or little shoes, as some people keep reminding him on Twitter. So Dolly's left, gone to Aberdeen, and he's been replaced by Ross Goodwin, ex-Annan, Queen of the South and Kilmarnock. Local lad, if you want to put it that way, just over the border in Scotland. Seems a solid enough appointment, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I heard a whisper a couple of weeks before he was announced that he would be getting it. So I had a little look up on him, and he seems to have worked his way up the ranks. Obviously, did a bit at Annan, got a move to Queen of the South, and then got the Kilmarnock job. I think he's been at Kilmarnock for 3 years. Yeah. And obviously, when he announced he was moving, he seemed to get a heck of a lot of good wishes from the folks up there.
So, our old hero Gary Dicker as well, one of them.
Yeah. Yep. So I know it looks like he's a good lad to have in, especially as we say, living 15 minutes up the road.
Yep. And finally, we'll just cover before we get onto the new signing section. Let's talk about trialists. So we played a bounce game. Is it a pre-season friendly? It was at the training ground. It's a bit of a different one, wasn't it? Against Fleetwood earlier this week, and 2 trialists featured in that game. Now, the club wanted to keep these names quiet. Good old Fleetwood Town helped us out, though, and reveal their names. One familiar face in there, Joe Fryer, who obviously was on loan a couple of years ago. Did really well, actually, at the start of his loan spell. Looked a really decent keeper on loan from Middlesbrough. Unfortunately, suffered a horrific leg break in a game against Crewe. And I don't think he's played a first-team game since then, has he? But he's trying to earn a contract and get himself back in the game, isn't he?
Yeah, I was discussing with another Carlisle fan yesterday when his name came out. As far as we're aware, we think he's still under contract at Middlesbrough. Oh. We've never seen it be announced that he isn't. So whether it would be a permanent move or a loan with a view to maybe a move next summer, we're not sure. But he's not played a game of football since that game against Crewe when he got injured. So I was also looking, he's 25-year-old in November, so pardon the pun, it really is make or break time for someone like him. You know, I mean, he's got to step out the shadows at Middlesbrough and start establishing himself. So,
but he did look good when he was in that little brief loan spell. I mean, he kept calling out the team. People forget that, obviously. You know.
Yeah, when Colin was actually signed as the backup keeper, wasn't he? And obviously handy to step in when Fryer did have his bad break. But no, those sort of 5 or 6 games he did play, he looked a heck of a good keeper. And as long as he doesn't have any problems with his leg or sort of the mental side of it, hopefully he signs and pushes on.
Yep, I've got to briefly mention it from that game. He conceded 1 goal. He played the first half, didn't he? And our other new signing played the second. He only conceded 1 goal, but it never should have been given, quite frankly. It was a ridiculous decision where Ched Evans caught him, I think, about in his midriff, didn't he, with his studs up. And
yeah.
But bizarrely, none of our players appealed for it, which is a bit of a strange one, really. But there you go. The other trialist, Junior Mondal. Now, we sort of knew he was on trial a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Because of the most modern way a footballer could out himself as being on trial at a club, really, wasn't it, Don?
Yes. Apparently, a friend of a friend of a friend was browsing a well-known dating app.
Tinder.
And his profile appeared. A screenshot was taken, passed about between 1 or 2 people, and it was worked out that he was in town due to his location. So. Yeah.
He's an interesting one, though, isn't he? Because he's an ex-Middlesbrough youth. I think he left them and he went to a non-league side in the North East. I can't remember who now. I should have written this down before I started.
It's Whitby Town.
Whitby, that's the one I knew. He knew it was one of the smaller ones. He went to Whitby Town, but did quite well there and got a move to Forest Green Rovers, didn't he?
Yes.
Down in Gloucestershire. Never really nailed down a first-team place with them, though. But he's looking to move back north. Potentially could be an interesting signing, though, couldn't he? Maybe. Potentially not too expensive backup for the forward line.
Yeah, I heard a couple of people saying, he only scored 5 goals for Forest Green. But when you actually look at his record, I think quite a lot of appearances were off the bench. So, some of these times he could only be coming on for 5 or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
And I reckon he would. I'm just looking it up here. I think he played 39 league games, but 24 were from the bench.
That tells you a lot then, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's probably equivalent to about 8 full appearances. So
I remember the game when Thomas got his hat-trick. I remember his name being mentioned in the commentary a fair bit. Now, I can't remember if it was negative or positive, but he was getting mentioned a fair bit. So it shows he's involved in the game at the very least. But an interesting one. In the end of the day, costs nothing to look, doesn't it? And I think the days of dozens of trialists turning up... not the days are over, but this summer you're not going to see that, are you? Just because of the restrictions that are in place.
No.
The play comes, they're coming in and they're going to be in for a few weeks, something like that.
Yeah, I would think any trialist will be in for at least 2 or 3 weeks, and we've probably scouted him, and if he does well, it wouldn't be a surprise if he got an offer of at least a year,
Yes, definitely. So there are your 2 trialists. It'll be interesting to see how they do. We've obviously got a friendly against Workington this weekend. The club are looking apparently into the possibility of streaming that, which would be great if they can.
I know BBC Radio Cumbria tweeted earlier, I think they're doing commentary from it. So if it isn't streamed, it's certainly on the radio.
Well, there you go. You can give it a listen at least. Obviously, remember that game is behind closed doors. Do not go down. We don't want to put any chance of the season starting in jeopardy. That's something we've got to be very clear about to the fans there. Keep your distance, basically. Because the club, have raised something this week about people turning up to the training ground, and it's obviously a controlled environment, and we don't want to end up with players catching coronavirus and then obviously games being postponed, as we've seen the issues in Scotland this week.
Definitely not.
Yes. Okay, let's move on from the general squad news and let's move on to the new signings. Finally, we had a very, very busy week, didn't we, of new players coming into the club, Dan? And you've taken a look into these players and made a few notes on them. So let's go through them. Let's start from goalkeeper to defender to midfield to forward. Off you go.
Yeah, first up, we signed a goalkeeper.
Hey.
Hopefully we'll get a second one as well.
Yeah.
But for now, we have Magnus Norman. Looks a massive lad from the photos, a good 6'4" or 5.
Yeah.
London born, was at Fulham from a very young age. I think he was picked up when he was 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Turned professional with them. He had 3 or 4 loan spells, mostly in non-league. I think he had a good spell at Southport.
Southport took me with that, I think. Yeah.
I think he possibly played when they had that cup run the other year when they were on the TV.
Yeah, I have a feeling him and Dan Hanford might have been together at the same time.
Right.
Rings a bell.
And then he apparently had a loan spell at Rochdale in the early part of the 18-19 season, which
Chris
is
Beach
where,
there.
yeah, that'll be the Chris Beach link. Now, having had a quick Google of his time at Rochdale, some of their fans weren't complimentary, shall we say, but it was his first experience of league football, so you've got to give the lad the benefit of the doubt. And the fact that he's moved from London up to Carlisle to have a proper go speaks volumes of a player who wants to prove himself for me.
Well, hopefully he'll do better than the last West London-based goalkeeper that came up to us who didn't really have the most brilliant of time with us, or Lenny Pidgley, of course, that would be. Okay, next on defender. Start with George Tanner.
Yes, well, I actually heard about this move several weeks before it happened, because I have some contacts in the Manchester football scene, and I was told it was happening and it was done. Obviously, we waited and waited. It eventually came out. Now, this lad, seemingly, when he had a loan spell from Man United to Morecambe last season, was the best player at Morecambe for the first half of the season.
Yes, he had a good game against us. I remember it in the league.
Yeah, and I'm led to believe that it was one of Chris Beach's first games in charge.
It was actually, yeah. I remember.
And from what I understand, I think Beach sort of saw him in the corridors afterwards and said, well played, lad. You had a good game. And obviously, it's stuck a little thing in his head. And when we've went for him,
isn't it?
Yeah. But by all accounts, this lad is a really good player. I mean, he went on loan to Salford for the second half of the season.
Got an injury, didn't he, at the start?
But he got an injury, and when he recovered, obviously football stopped. So you can write that off for the start. But by all accounts, he's a very, very good prospect, and it would be no surprise if he pushed on and made the club some money.
Oh, definitely. I mean, well, it's interesting when you read some of the comments. I think Beach was on saying, wasn't he, that he actually had offers from championship clubs. But obviously, if he was going there, he's going to be a squad player, but he wants to be playing football. And that's a big positive. That.
I think that's been the mantra with one or two of our signings, come to us, you're going to play 30, 40 games. And if you do well and a move comes, we won't stand in your way. I mean, it's refreshing to see young players would rather go out and play than possibly earn twice the money for sitting on the backsides,
Well, they know how difficult it's going to be to get a club at the moment anyway with the whole coronavirus thing. So I think some players maybe are looking and thinking, I need to get myself a club where I'm going to play games as much as anything, Okay, next up, another defender. This one is a number 13, which I know is driving you a little bit mad. It's Rod McDonald.
Yeah, 13 is a goalkeeper's shirt number. I'm very traditional with a 1 to 25 personally.
Me too.
But no, he's picked 13, so he's not bothered by the connotations there. Yeah, this was one that flew sort of under the radar a little bit. His name certainly wasn't linked to us anywhere.
Yeah. All the other names were, weren't they? And this is the only one that was missed out.
Yeah, and he's a proper experienced lad, isn't he? He started at Stoke, didn't really happen for him, couple of loans. He actually drifted in. He went to Oldham, I think, and then drifted into non-league. I think he was at Colwyn Bay, Nantwich, Hereford and Telford, and then Northampton took the chance on him. And he had a couple of years there, then a year at Coventry, then went to Wimbledon for a couple of years, which is all good, solid sort of League One football. So
yeah,
I know. He said when he signed he wanted to get back up north. Obviously, you can't get much more northern than us. But
yeah, I was going to say that's a bit of a check. I think I saw the club retweeted something where someone said he's shite at working his way around the London Underground apparently. So probably just as well he has moved up north. But yeah, I think we had this feeling with Webster not signing. There's a bit of a gap there in terms of experience at the back. He's not as experienced maybe as someone like a Webster or a Knight Percival, but he's got a bit more age on his side, hasn't he? Which does help, I think. And he's done it at League One level for the last few years. So.
Yeah, and he's played fairly regularly. He's played a good amount of games for those league clubs. No, it's fairly. Apparently, he was left-sided by all accounts,
Yeah.
which it's always nice to have the balance of a left foot, right foot sort of defence. And happy enough with that one.
Yep. How long do you reckon it'll be there before he makes a mistake and his name's slightly changed to Ron instead of Rod? I won't give it long. Okay, next up, another defender, Jack Armour. This is one that we knew about quite a while back through various sources, mainly the fact that he only follows 3 football clubs on Twitter: Preston, who he was at, Lancaster, he was on loan at, and us. So
Yeah.
bit of a giveaway there that he was possibly coming to us. But a young lad who a lot was thought of at Preston apparently, but the circumstances of coronavirus seem to have just worked against him. He's been a bit unlucky. Apparently their manager said that without coronavirus he probably would have given him another year and kept him on, but they just can't afford to have as big a squad now.
Yeah, he was a first-year pro last season, and he went to Lancaster City on loan to get a bit of experience, and by all accounts did very well there. Yeah. And again, as you say, I think if COVID hadn't happened, he would probably have got another year at Preston. He's a Scottish under-19, I think it was, international, so he's obviously got something about him, this lad. And I would say it's more one for the future, because obviously we've got Anderton who plays left back, but
he can play further forward, can't he? That's what Beach seems to be suggesting. You might even use him a little bit further up the pitch, or even at centre back where he's played.
Yeah,
before.
he looked quite a tall lad again from his pictures. So you wonder if he's one who could maybe cover 2 or 3 positions, and hopefully he pushes on and cements his place in our squad.
Not 100% what squad number he's taken, are we? Because we haven't seen any training gear with his number on, I don't think, and he didn't feature in the game at Fleetwood, so we didn't get to see him.
Yeah, I know his Twitter bio, he was 18 was his number, but I think Josh Dixon is probably keeping 18.
I'd imagine he would be, So that's Jack Armour. Probably one who won't feature as much to start, but maybe we'll get a few games during the season, we hope. Okay, next up, Joe Riley. Now, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because people might remember his name, obviously, from that Manchester United debut for Marcus Rashford, because he played in the same game, didn't he?
Correct, yes. And a lot was thought of Joe Riley, and he first was initially a midfielder, and then I think he covered left back and ended up playing there a bit, and he can also play right back, so he's your classic sort of utility player in that he can cover both full backs and a couple of places in the midfield. And you mentioned he played in that 5-1 win for Man United, the same game Rashford did. Obviously,
it's Michelin, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, Rashford's obviously pushed on to the stratosphere since. But no, the one thing with Riley is he went to Sheffield United, only played a couple of games, and then he signed for Bradford, and he didn't really play much. And I think he did his ACL.
He's had 2 bad injuries, hasn't he? I think he had a toe injury or something like that, or something quite bad. I think one of them was just a freak accident in training, wasn't it? He's been very unlucky in that sense. Yeah,
but I noticed I think it was his Instagram, he mentioned 12 months on from doing his ACL. So I think he's one of those, if he'd stayed fit, he would probably still be at Bradford and doing quite well. But he's come here and he obviously looks fit again. I know he played in that Fleetwood game. Yeah. And he wants to push on and make his career. So
I think he's one who potentially could be a really good player for us if he can keep himself fit. That's the key, going to be the key with him, I think. And he's taken squad number 7, hasn't he?
Yeah, which happy enough if he plays midfield, but you can't have a fullback playing 7. Come on.
No, I'm annoyed enough that Seville's score against Wolves last night was wearing number 5. Just come on. Just unbelievable. I mean, it's bad enough when it's down 1. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, okay, up next. So I said Joe Riley, sort of defender midfielder. We're not sure. He's going to play either, we think. He's going to be able to play a few positions. Next up is another midfielder, though. It's Daniel Devine. Another one that we heard about a while back, isn't it, Danny?
Yeah, this was one that was rumoured for a couple of weeks before it was announced. He's a Bradford lad, came through the ranks at Bradford. He's spent 4 seasons there, but he's just not played enough games. I think he's maybe played, was it 50 games for them?
Yeah.
I actually spoke to a friend who's a Bradford fan, and he said he's not a bad player. Just he seemed to always be the fall guy, with him being the local lad, which I can sort of understand a little bit, you know. But no, he's another who's made the move. He's obviously a fresh start, and another who wants to push on. So
yeah. I think he's gone number 4, hasn't he? Which suggests he's a holding midfielder.
Yes.
The impression we get. So it's a bit more depth, isn't it, in the midfield there? And we're actually fairly well covered centre midfield, aren't we? Obviously, with the likes of Callum Guy there, Taylor Charters, Josh Dixon as well. John Mellish obviously playing there.
Yeah, it still wouldn't be a surprise if we brought another midfielder in, though, just to boost the numbers.
Let's discuss that one in a minute, because I think there's a rumour that won't go away, isn't there? Next up, forwards. So we'll start off with the new. In fact, let's start with the one who's been here before. JJ Coyote, or Joshua Coyote, has returned on loan from Rotherham. One I think we all expected was going to happen. Beach has hinted it all summer, and one we're really pleased to see back in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we actually extended his loan if the season was going to restart.
And that afternoon it was cancelled.
And then that very afternoon it was cancelled. So, you know, I think it was plainly obvious from then. Obviously, with Rotherham going up as well to the Championship, I wouldn't say he's a Championship level striker yet.
No.
So coming back on loan to us is a move for all parties. You know, he gets his games, hopefully gets us goals, and Rotherham get their player developing.
Definitely. He seems really hungry and keen, doesn't he, to come back and impress, and that's a good sign. Really shows that we've got a good setup at the moment, and players who are coming on loan are happy to come back.
Yeah, it points to the fact that he obviously enjoyed his couple of months with us. You know, I know he scored, was it 3 goals?
Yeah,
and he seemed to enjoy scoring his goals. You know, he had a couple of happy celebrations. So.
Well, the one against Mansfield, he went nuts, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was loving that. Because I mean, when I first saw him, I wasn't that impressed. I think it was the Oldham game he came in as a sub, and I thought he struggled a bit. But actually, to be fair, as the games went by, you could see his confidence picked up, and he was causing teams problems. And he had a good link up with Patrick as well, so it'd be good to see them have another go, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
So we think he's number 14, don't we? I think he was 23 last season, which was Branthwaite's number originally.
Yeah.
So we think he's gone for number 14. Just to name a couple of famous strikers who've wore 14 for us. Joe Garner and Lee Miller both wore 14 in their first seasons with us. So, you know, if you can follow in their footsteps, we'll be pretty happy, won't we? Next up, another attacker. Now, this is one name that's been mentioned, linked with the club for a few years now, hasn't he, really? Gavin Riley, a local lad who actually started off in our academy, didn't he?
Yes, I didn't actually realise he'd been at our academy as a youngster. But he didn't make the grade with us, and he went to Queen of the South, where he really made his name. He had about 5 years at Queen's, and he scored a good number of goals. And Queen's had a really good team five years ago, and there was 3 of them sort of got good moves out of it. And I remember saying on the forum at the time that Gavin Riley was a player we really should go for. As it was, he went up to Hearts. Didn't really happen for him at Hearts.
No.
He played all right, but Hearts was a bit of a crazy club at the time.
Still are, aren't they?
Yeah, there was a fair bit going on. And he spent his second season on loan at Dunfermline, where he linked up with, what was his name? Alan Johnson, who had been manager at Queen's. And after Hart, he went to St Mirren, and he had
did really well, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a good season at St Mirren, double figures in goals. And then he went down to Bristol Rovers 2018 again. I think in 2018 I sort of said that he would be a good signing for us. Didn't do too well at Bristol Rovers, but quite a few of his appearances again came off the bench. So, and I know when he went to Cheltenham on loan last season, he certainly looked a good player against us.
Yeah, well, they wanted to keep him, didn't they, for the whole season? But I think Bristol Rovers changed manager, and the new manager came and wanted to have a look at him at the very least.
Yeah.
So he went back to them, and because I think we wanted to sign him in January, but because he played for Bristol Rovers, he'd played for 2 clubs, so wasn't.
Yeah, that was mentioned, wasn't it? In I think was it his interview with John Coleman? Did I read that? That he he'd sort of said we had been interested. Obviously, he lives in Gretna for those that don't know, so. Yeah. playing for Carlisle's a perfect move for him 10 minutes up the road.
Exactly. Well, both me and you have watched that Queen of the South YouTube clip, haven't we, of all of his goals when he scored for Queens.
Yeah.
And he scores all kinds of goals, doesn't he? He's left foot, right foot, headers, sneaking in. He's got a bit of pace. If he can rediscover that form and a bit of confidence, I think being settled, I think one thing he mentioned was, I mean, you don't think about these things sometimes, but he didn't have any sort of childcare down in Bristol when he's down there with his missus and his kid. So being back home, he's got 2 sets of grandparents to look after the kid as well. So that might make him feel a bit more comfortable. Hopefully he'll get him performing to the same level again. And I genuinely think of all the signings we made, this is one that could really prove to be a quite inspired one, I think.
Yeah. Like you say, all those reasons. Back at home, he's only travelling 10, 15 minutes for training. He'll be settled, and hopefully he really pushes on and scores a few goals for us.
Definitely. So overall, just looking at the business we've done, Dan, fairly happy so far. Maybe just missing a little bit of a spark in there, a creative spark, would you say?
Well, I know who you're going to move on to here. The one rumour that doesn't go away at the moment, a certain Jamie Devitt.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because he did go away. There were suggestions. There was some weird Twitter rumours. Oh, he's training with Bolton. He's signing for them next week. But I mean, Bolton signed that Sasevic, didn't they? He was at Plymouth, and they signed a few other players in those sort of positions. I'm not sure they're desperate for midfielders, really. And suddenly the rumours reappeared. And if what I'm hearing from my sources, we've got a very good chance of getting him. It's mainly dependent on what happens with him at Blackpool. I think he's clearly Blackpool want to get rid. It's whether he goes out on loan and someone pays a chunk of his wages, or they pay him up and he comes to us. There's some discussion about that by all accounts, but there's a good chance he could be ending up back with us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it did go through, the fan base would be extremely happy. You only have to see the number of folk who mention his name on the likes of Twitter. I'm not normally one for going back for players, but I think with Devitt you could possibly make the exception because we know what he can do in League Two.
I mean, it's just, as much as anything, he brings you good quality set pieces straight away, doesn't he, as well?
Yeah,
that makes a massive difference. He's a creative player. He'll get goals from midfield, and you can help bring through your likes of your Charters and your Dixons, and the young lads can learn from him, can't they? And you look back at his career, the only 2 places he's ever really been properly settled are us and Morecambe, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you'd imagine he possibly might be the move he wants to make.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
But just looking at that squad generally, any other positions you think we still need to fill?
As mentioned earlier, a second goalkeeper. Obviously, Joe Fryer's the clear sort of favourite there. We haven't really got any wide players, have we?
No. Well, Nathan Thomas is still available, but I've seen him linked with Forest Green. And I'm the usual EFL Twitter rumours 32571 account are suggesting he's about to sign for Forest Green. But that makes zero sense to me, considering he cancelled his loan at Gillingham last season because he was homesick, because it was too far. Yeah. Why would he then move to Forest Green? I'm not convinced.
The only reason I could see that happening was they offered him seriously good money, which Forest Green can.
Yes, true.
They've got certainly a little bit of money, but it'd be a bit of a surprise if that one happened, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I agree. I think a wide play is definitely something that we could do with adding. I think obviously Patrick can play out wide and Alessandro can fill in there when needed. And I think we've heard suggestions he's probably not ready for the first team yet, that Charlie Birchie's been looked as a wide player rather than left back now, which might explain why Armour was brought in too. So I think I'd agree. I think you might see a couple of loan signings coming in the next few weeks. I think once the fixtures are out and squads start to settle down, they know when games are happening. So
yeah, I think we're at 22 players in the squad at the moment. A keeper would be 23, so I would say maybe 1 or 2 more, and that will pretty much be it, I would think. Yeah,
you've got to obviously take into account as well the fact that there's 4 or 5 young lads there that probably not going to feature that much. But
yeah, six of them are first-year pros, including charters. So.
Yeah. But obviously, the other thing you've got to consider there is one of them's got to be on the bench, because that's the rules.
Yeah.
So be interesting to see who that is.
I think we'll also see a couple of those maybe go out to Workington or maybe Annan on loan to get a bit of football into them.
Yeah, the one obviously issue with Annan obviously is the fact that it would have to be a half-season loan. that would have limited their chances for us. If they go to Workington, at least they can come back like Charters did.
Yes.
Okay, I think we've covered the squad side of things, haven't we, Dan? I think that was a fairly comprehensive chat about that. So let's move on to the next section in the next part, and we're going to look at season tickets, because we've finally got details on season tickets.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going to record another episode roughly next week when we expect the fixtures to come out, and we'll probably cover this sort of stuff in a lot more detail surrounding that. But I was on a Zoom call as part of the Carlisle United supporters groups for the message board last week, and Nigel Clibbins gave us the information, which was then put out to the fan base towards the end of last week. And there was quite a few sort of key points, basically social distancing is massively going to change how we watch games. Yeah. No ifs and buts. Standing in a group of 10 at the back of the Warwick Road end will simply not be happening,
No.
I'll go through a few sort of key points.
Yeah.
Basically, season tickets will be the best way to guarantee a ticket.
Yes, 100%.
They're doing just over a week's worth of renewal time for current season ticket holders, and then potential new season ticket holders will have a week. And by all accounts, you are only registering your intent to buy one. No money will take exchange sort of thing until
the 24th of August, wasn't it? I think was the date, the earliest I think they said would happen.
I think until they have a definitive fixture list and number of games that people will be able to go to watch, only then will they sort of set about for the payments. So
come chasing you for money.
Yeah. But no, when it comes, obviously seating, my understanding is they'll basically use a row, miss a row, use a row, miss a row, and there will be 2 seat gaps between people or bubbles. So obviously, if you and your dad and your brother and your cousin go, you will be classed as one bubble.
Yeah.
But you would sit 4 together, then there will be 2 seats empty, then another 1 or 2. So it'll be very, very spaced out. A lot of people will not be able to sit in their seat.
Yeah.
But for one season, I think it's a sacrifice we can all make just to be able to see some football.
Definitely. And we're in an advantage, aren't we, at Carlisle? And we've got such a big ground. We can accommodate a lot more than other clubs are going to be able to accommodate. You feel a bit for like Barrow and Harrogate, because they might be struggling to get 400, 500 fans into games to their grounds.
Yeah, certainly. And I know when it comes to terracing, they're actually putting the Warwick Road end into, I think it's 16 sections.
Yes, it's the same in the paddock. Yeah.
The paddock has about 18, but when you actually look at those sections empty, where the walkways are and the crash barriers, they actually sort of section themselves off pretty well.
Yeah.
Anyway, and most people have their own sort of area they like. It's just they won't be able to stand so close to everybody.
I'll tell you what, if I don't get my space in paddock 10, I'm going to be fuming.
Paddock 18 for you, lad.
Me and Greg Bullman are very determined to make sure we get paddock 10 for this season.
And regarding actual entry, it's going to be face coverings will be pretty much needed. Obviously, medical exemptions will be exempt. There'll be there's a fan code of conduct which is worth looking up on the official site regarding it. We'll also post the relevant links when we launch this pod in the next couple of days. But there'll also be sort of one-way systems to the ground. So if you're in North Paddock, for example, you will have to come over Stonyholme. If you're in South Paddock, you will come through the car park. If you're East Stand, you'll only be able to come from Warwick Road. But we'll go through this in a lot more detail once the fixtures are out and there's a bit more information out there.
Yeah, the key thing is we're all going to have to do a little bit of sacrificing in terms of the way we enjoy going to games. But the important thing is we're going to be able to go to games. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, we are lucky. We should all be quite grateful at Carl that we're lucky. We have such a big ground. We've moaned about it a lot of the time, but we've got a big ground, which means people probably won't miss out.
as we said last time, there was a rumour of 33% capacity, which for us is just shy of 6,000, which
It's comfortable for us.
given we've been getting 4,500 roughly, it's perfect for us. But
And our understanding also about the waterworks as well, because a few people have been asking about that, is that it's not going to be used to start with, but I'd imagine that might be, if they do any sort of general sales, they probably would be in there.
yeah,
I
I think if demand starts to outstrip supply, they will certainly look at opening the waterworks.
It's not clear as well about away fans, and that's another thing that's not 100% certain at the moment, whether away fans will be allowed to go to games, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I'm just praying that Bolton and Harrogate are after Christmas for us, because I'd be fuming if we don't get those two. Barrow I'm not too fussed about because I've been, so I can tick that one off. But yeah, so yeah, I think you've covered it fairly comprehensively there, Dan. Actually, I think the best advice you've got to fans is go and look on the official website. The details are there. It's really well thought out action. I think, the club get criticised for a lot of stuff they do, and quite fairly at times, but I think they deserve credit. I think they've handled this really well, and they've been very clear as to what the situation is.
There's been a steady stream of information, and basically as soon as the club know, the fans know. So we've done quite well with it.
Okay, and well, I think that covers the season ticket side of things. I'm hoping I'll get this out on Thursday morning, so you might be reading this and you might have already renewed your season ticket. And if you have, well done. I'm going to be on the phone at 10 a.m, probably stuck on hold for a while. The only other little bit of news we've got, Carl United related specifically, is the new kits are out. We won't go into much detail on this though, Dan, will we? Because we're going to do a special episode on the history of Carl United kits. And we'll probably discuss a little bit about the current kit then, but fairly happy with it. I know I can't get used to the navy stripe, and your feeling is it's not a Carl United kit, isn't it?
I find the home kit, there's two shades of blue and neither are Carlisle United blue for me. My version of Carlisle United blue is somewhere between the two. I've seen quite a few fans say it looks like a training top, which, don't get me wrong, it's a smart kit, but for me it's not Carlisle blue.
No. Go on. Which Carlisle United kit from like the last 25 years would you say? A couple of examples of what you would say a Carlisle United blue.
My version of Carlisle United blue is a little bit earlier. It's the Umbro made McEwen's Younger sponsored kits of the sort of early to mid 80s. That's a Carlisle United blue for me.
So maybe the most recent one would be the Red Fox kit from like the Jimmy Glass game era.
Yeah,
that sort of colour, maybe that sort of dark art blue. Okay, I'll give you that one. Yep, that's fair enough. It's one of those ones, isn't it? We shades of blue. We've changed so much down the years.
Yeah.
Both me and you are going to be pushing for a special kit next season, aren't we?
Yeah, more news on that when we do the special.
Yeah, well, we're going to be starting the campaign now to celebrate a bit of our history that people don't really talk about that much. So, yes. That's that covered. Okay, we'll take a little break now, and we'll move on next to EFL updates, a little brief coverage of that bit, and a bit of ex-Carlisle United player news.
Come on!
Get in there!
Okay, we're back. Let's get on with the next part then, Dan. EFL updates. So, since we last recorded, we were also discussing who we wanted to come up from the National League, and everyone should be pleased because the majority have got what they wanted. Harrogate Town are a Football League club. Congratulations to the... I don't know what their nickname is. I should have looked that up before, shouldn't I? The T lads, maybe, something like that. I don't know. They're like tea rooms there, don't they?
The Harrogate Town nickname, off the top of my head... I can't think of one. No. Do they have one?
I'm going to Google it. You talk about how great it is to have them in the league.
I've just had a look. Apparently, it's either the highly unoriginal Town or the Sulphurites.
The Sulphurites.
Yeah, that's a nice one, isn't it?
That's a belting one. Why have they got that one? I wonder.
I don't know.
Oh, due to the famous Sulphur Springs, of course, the spa.
There we go.
That makes sense. Did they form from Harrogate Railway, or did Harrogate Railway still exist?
Harrogate Railway still exists.
Well, there you go. I didn't know
Yes.
that. Because they were above them, weren't they, for a while? I think.
Yes.
A while back.
But they've slipped down. They've slipped down. I think they're in northern counties, possibly.
There you go. That's a low enough level, isn't it? But yeah, so well done to Harrogate Town. Particularly big well done to Paul Furwell and Mark Beck, obviously ex-United players who are both part of the squad in a sense at Harrogate. Also, Mark Beck's one of their strikers alongside John Stead. And Paul Furwell, I think, is the assistant manager there, isn't he?
Yeah,
So,
and
great news for them.
Yeah, obviously the first time up, new venue, Northern, and those who watched the final, I thought they played Notts County off the pitch.
I was very impressed with them. Notts County are a decent side. They've put together a good squad. Notts County now, so
Yeah. One of the key things though with Harrogate is they have a 4G pitch.
Yes.
And obviously they've started work already on that, and they've announced that they're going to play at Doncaster Rovers.
Well, it's interesting because we suggested York would have been the obvious place.
Yeah,
the rumours are they won't let them.
I wondered if it's to do because York are due to go to their new stadium and
True.
maybe didn't want to share a new stadium so soon. But you would have thought maybe Halifax or Huddersfield are a bit nearer, but Doncaster it is.
But I think they did play there when they had the 4G pitch installed a few years ago. I'm sure
That
they
would
played
make
at Doncaster
sense.
as well.
Yeah.
So there's clearly a good link there.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a disadvantage for them though, isn't it? Because that was a big advantage for them in the conference, and they train there as well because it would be a 4G pitch.
Yeah,
so they've got to find a training ground as well, I presume, and obviously dig up the pitch, and they make money from it too.
I was just about to say it's probably a good money spinner for them. You know, obviously, local teams can play their training and games on it.
Yeah, well, that's our third closest away day next season. Obviously, Morecambe is actually the nearest in terms of time it takes to get there, but Barrow's obviously the nearest in terms of distance. But I think it'll probably take as long to get to Barrow as it will to Harrogate, based on the way the roads are down in South Cumbria.
We'll all meet up at Betty's.
Yes, let's go at Betty's for tea. Even if we're not playing next, let's go and have a sneaky little trip to the tea.
Yeah.
So yeah, well done Harrogate. So they've completed League 2 this season, the lineup. And then obviously it changed the other day because we thought we were going to have a nice Northern League. Obviously still is quite a Northern League, but Macclesfield are now been relegated. This has been a debacle that's carried on from the end of the season. Obviously the issues in terms of points per game and having to solve the season, not easy for the EFL. But then there was the issue of Macclesfield's points deduction. The original panel decided just 2 points, but the EFL themselves weren't happy with that, appealed it and won the appeal. And those extra 4 points have relegated them, haven't they?
Yeah, Stevenage should be very, very, very much counting their chickens because they were atrocious last season.
Appalling, weren't they?
Fully deserved to go down. And how many points ahead were Macclesfield without the deductions? Were there
a stupid amount of points?
10 or 12 or at least, you know. And as it is, the extra 4 got added on and it meant they got relegated by something points, you know, with the PPG rule. But I personally think they just want rid of Macclesfield to avoid another Bury situation.
Yes, because
they're heading that way, aren't they?
Well, they've only got 2 players, I think, and the management team turned down their new contracts.
Yeah,
today.
The management team turned the contracts down. The owners put them up for sale officially and doesn't want anything to do with them. They did take on a new sort of business person the other day, but quite what they'll be selling, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's quite a shame really because it's a proper good little community club, isn't it? And they've done well in the league in the past, but not to be really for them. Really a shame. But like you said, Stevenage is very lucky. But I did enjoy their shithousing on Twitter, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they put a tweet up just with a picture of the manager on the pitch saying the EFL season will begin on the 12th of September, literally an hour or so after the EFL announcement.
They really should have had a gif of someone just wiping sweat off their head, really, shouldn't they, really? That would have been much more appropriate, and I think people would have seen the funny side of that. But yeah, so there you go. EFL sorted for next season, while the League 2 sorted. There's probably still rumblings going on, I think, about the championship.
I know, and I did notice that it said that the decision is final and basically can't be appealed. But I've no doubt that Macclesfield will be consulting their legal books.
Well, by all accounts, the fixtures are out next Friday, is the rumour we're hearing, because the EFL AGM is on Thursday, isn't it, I believe? So I think at that point, it's just like Macclesfield just go away, I think is essentially what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty difficult, I think, for them to appeal it. And looking at what they said in their statement, they didn't sound 100% convinced that they had really much of a leg to stand on, did they?
No.
So there you go. We know where we're going to be playing next season, and next week we'll know when we're going to be playing those games, and we'll be discussing them next week. So let's just move on to a few ex-Cal United updates. Quite a bit has happened actually since we last did it. I've probably missed some bits off this. Apologies if I had, but just that much has happened in the last month. So let's get started with some good news to start with. Something we're really pleased to see, not just because of the money it's going to make the club, but Jared Branthwaite making his debut for Everton. Fantastic. Really, really good to see a young lad who's got his head screwed on doing so well at the club, isn't it?
Yeah, and the plaudits, I mean, obviously Everton had a terrible end to the season results-wise, and having had a good look on their forums, basically Jared Branthwaite was the only sort of positive they could take out of it. And I think it was Jamie Carragher came out and sort of said, this lad looks the business, and high praise indeed after only a couple of appearances.
Well, he only turned 18 not long before he actually made his debut, didn't he? It's insane, really, that you think. And he looked comfortable alongside Michael Keane in defence, didn't he? And the first things first, it's made us a bit of money. And I think that's put us in a position, by all accounts, where we're able to comfortably put a squad together, whereas other clubs are going to probably struggle this summer to put the squad together they want. So we might be in a better position to do well in the division. But we obviously know as well there's more money to come, because there's plenty of add-ons in that deal by all accounts. And you know what, if he's probably not going to feature for Everton at the start of next season, you imagine, unless they can't get another defender, and he might then find himself as the third or fourth choice centre back.
But you would imagine he would certainly play in League Cup
games,
maybe.
Yes. He might get himself a loan move to a Championship club as well.
He's done well, and even sort of like a Wigan in League One or somewhere, close by would be ideal for him for at least half a season, if not the full season. But
I think I'm going to put a bold prediction out there. That lad is going to make us a lot of money.
I thought you were going to say he's going to go with England to Euro 2021 next summer.
Hey, I'm keeping my powder dry on that one to see how he starts the season.
Might get a price on that.
You never know. If he has a flying start to the season, could well happen. Very unlikely. I think he could end up in that England under 21 squad in the near future, though.
Yeah,
because we know Paul Simpson was watching him for the under 19. You'd imagine he's going to get called up for one of those at some point. So. Yeah, but it's all good news. Good news for the lad. Good news for us.
And best of luck to him.
Exactly that. Okay, let's look at some players who were with us last season, where they've moved on to. So first up, Elliot Watt has joined Bradford. Surprisingly, he's joined them permanently.
Yeah, I think, again, possibly similar to Armour leaving Preston. I wondered if Wolves have just sort of looked at all their young options and went, well, they're not going to play for our first team immediately. Should we let a couple of them move on? Obviously, we'd all have loved to see him come back. His set pieces especially, he was...
really impressive, yeah.
But I would imagine Bradford would probably been able to outbid us if we did go in. I've never heard any rumour that we did go in for him, but you would certainly think we've possibly inquired if we knew he was available.
Yeah, but I just think you've got to be realistic sometimes and put your hands up and say Bradford are a bigger club than us. That's just a simple fact of it. And he's a Preston lad. It's not too far across the Pennines to get to Bradford from there. Not the best roads, absolutely.
No.
But it's probably just a better move for him. And good luck to that. I think he'll do well there. I think the result of that is we've managed to get Danny Devine. So hopefully, it'll be a good move for all parties. Yeah. Number two of the older heads that were with us last season will let go. Adam Collin has signed for Kettering. A little bit of a surprise he dropped this low, but it's probably a better move for him personally, because we do know obviously he lives down in the Midlands now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he lives just outside Mansfield by all accounts. I know Kettering's maybe an hour down from Mansfield, but it certainly beats 2.5, 3 hours up to Carlisle. Yeah. I would imagine he's probably going to be their highest paid player, coming from League Two. And he has a goalkeeping academy in the Mansfield area, so he's probably able to push on a little bit with this. He'll be sort of semi full time, not part time, but semi full time, if you know what I mean. But no,
Hell of a good signing for them, though, isn't it, when you think about it?
yeah. He's at that age now where he's wanting to look at his other interests. Probably a move that suits him.
Yep. The other one, Mike Jones, has joined Barrow. Little bit of a surprise this. We thought he might join a Manchester-based club, but then obviously you've got to remember that Barrow actually train in Manchester, don't they? So
yeah, I think Barrow train on
Rochdale, isn't it? I think
somewhere in the Rochdale Oldham sort of area. So this is the perfect move for Mike Jones. I mean, the players will probably only go up to Barrow on the Friday before a home game. David Dunn has an experienced lad who knows the division, and he's someone who can bring on their younger players. So a good move for him.
I have to say, I've been keeping an eye on some of the League Two transfers, and actually Barrow have signed pretty smartly in the summer when you look at some of the players they brought in. I think Callum Gribbin, who was at Sheffield United, used to be at Man United. He was one who a lot was thought of not long back, wasn't there? So it's a bit of a surprise one,
he's one of those who, similar to Joe Riley for us, if he sort of grasps his chance and pushes on, he could have a good career.
Yep. Okay, so that's the ones who were with us last season and have moved on. Someone who left us 5 years ago now. God, it doesn't seem that long, does it? But he's left his club is Kyle Dempsey. Now I'm not suggesting he's coming back to us. Let's get realistic here. I'm not in Cloud Cuckoo land just yet.
I'd love to see it.
Oh, you would love to see it, wouldn't you? It's one of those ones. But I think Hull and Sunderland might be just ahead of us in the queue.
And I think Barnsley are possibly looking as well. So I believe
it's an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because he was being linked with 300 grand moves in January, wasn't he? I think Peterborough were keen to bring him in permanently. And
the rumour was he was offered a 3-year deal in January.
Yeah.
And then they've got to the end of the season and they're happy to let him go, which smacks of Joey Barton management, But
yeah, well, by all accounts, they had a bit of a fallout in the past, hence why he went to Peterborough on loan at one point. But actually, Fleet would have signed Callum Camps, who I would have loved to have seen sign for us.
Yeah.
But never realistic. But
I did notice quite a few Fleetwood fans seemed a bit disappointed he'd been let go because, by all accounts, he played quite well last season. But
yeah,
no, I would think he'll certainly end up top end of League One, maybe even Championship. So.
But if he doesn't, I know he's back in Maryport right now, back with his family. So if he wants somewhere to train, I'm sure we can arrange something coronavirus test for him. Yep. Okay, and let's look at two players who potentially are going to make us some money. Sell-on clauses. So we'll start with Sam Cosgrove first, because that one might not make us money at the moment. Because firstly, he's picked up an injury, which isn't as bad as first thought, but he's turned down a move to France, and he's been a bit of a naughty boy, hasn't he?
Well, he turned down his move to France. It seemed very rushed. Apparently there was some sort of transfer window closing in France, which I didn't quite understand, considering the season hasn't really started. But for whatever reason, I think 2.5 million roughly from Guignon, one of Stefan's old. It was the other. No, it was the other Guignon. Was it? I can't remember.
I think it was them.
Now I think about it, it was. Yeah, but obviously it was too quick to sort of move for him, and. A week later, he gets an injury and could be out for anything up to 4 months, which obviously rules out, you would think, a move in this window. Yeah, he was one of the now infamous Aberdeen 8, who seemingly 8 players from Aberdeen went to a nightclub or pub in the town, which is now the centre of a COVID-19 spike, and all Aberdeen games are postponed, and there's all sorts of uproar up the road. Nicola Sturgeon wasn't happy, and Scottish football's on its last chance, basically, as that combined with the Celtic player who went to Spain and didn't tell anyone.
It's the mad one, isn't it?
As you do.
Yeah, I'm just going on a little trip to Spain. Don't worry, I won't tell you about it until after the game. But yeah, so it's one of those ones where we were kind of hopeful we might make a little bit of money, but you'd imagine even with the injury there might be a couple of championship clubs who panic and think, oh, I could do with a striker in and throw a bit of money at him, even with his knock, potentially.
If he is out till say October and comes back and starts scoring again,
January,
I think January you could definitely, because
they're going to sell him out there. They're going to have to.
Aberdeen are losing money and they need to sell, and he's one of their 2 main saleable assets. So.
Yeah. Okay, and let's quickly move on to the last one, the last point for this episode. Dean Henderson. Now, this is the one that potentially is going to make us a lot of Wonga, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, but he's going to make us money one of two ways, isn't he? Yeah. If he becomes Man United number one, we make good money. And if he plays for England, we make good money. But apparently we have a sell-on. And there is talk of the likes of Chelsea and 55 million pound transfers. Yeah. 55 million, if we have 25% of, you're talking 12, 13, 14 million, which is ridiculous money.
My understanding is we have at least 10%. I'm not 100% if you have any more than that. Or
I heard 20, so either or, you know. One thing I would add is I'd be very surprised if we got it in a complete one lump. I know that sell-ons are usually dealt with first, but a lot would come down to how it was paid for. You know, I mean, if they paid maybe 25 million up front and then...
Well, I'll take 2.5 million now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and then maybe 10 million for 3 years.
But essentially, if he gets that move, that wipes out our debts and puts a decent amount of money into the coffers.
Oh, yeah.
To make us a stable club for a while. It sounds terrible, but his career potentially changes our football club, really, doesn't it?
Henderson and Branthwaite could seriously make a massive impact on the future of Carlisle United, couldn't they?
Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
I personally, I don't think he's going to go. I think he'll end up at Sheffield United for the season.
You think?
And we'll make our money through Man United in another year. I would assume if he does play for England this autumn, if England games happen, that we would get our... Apparently there's a rumour it's £1 million if he plays for England.
Be incredible, that.
Which would be a nice little coffer booster.
Yeah, but it's one of those ones that the rumours are he wants to force a move because he doesn't want to be number 2 at Man United and he doesn't want to go on loan again, and he thinks he's good enough to be England keeper at the Euros next summer. He's a confident lad. We've seen that before. But Man United's problem is they've got David De Gea on 350 grand a week and they can't have him sat on the bench on that money. They just can't. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
It'll be an interesting few weeks regarding the Dean Henderson situation.
Definitely. Okay, so we're at the end of the episode now, so let's pick our competition winner for the bucket hat. So I'm going to use a random number generator on Google. What I'm going to do though, Dan, let me just load up this random generator, is I'm going to ask you to tell me how many times I should press it before we get to the number. So I can keep pressing the button and it'll refresh it to the one. So give me a number of times I should press it. Not something stupid, by the way.
No,
because we don't want dead air here.
My thinking here is it's for the Dean Walling bucket hat from Football Bobbles.
What are you going to say here?
So Dino's regular number at Carlisle United was number
4, wasn't it, I think?
Correct, so 4 times.
Okay, so let's do number 4 times. If you were number 11, you're unlucky. If you're number 4, you're unlucky. If you're number 1, you're unlucky. But if you're number 8, you've just won a bucket hat. Let's see who number 8 was. Number 8 is Lewis Ridley. And I know Lewis. It's going to sound like it's a fix. It's not. I 100% promise you it's not a fix. But congratulations, Lewis. You've just won a Dean Walling bucket hat as produced by footballbubbles.com. We'll get you details and get it sent out to you. Congratulations, Lewis. Little bit of a throw ahead here that I understand the guys at Football Bobbles are potentially looking at doing a version of those 2 hats as bobble hats in the winter. You have to wait and see if that happens there. It might be coming. You can pre-order the hats still, so get yourself on the website if you want to get one. So I think that about wraps it up for this episode. Thanks again, Dan, for your time. Always good to have a catch-up, isn't it? Yep. So coming up soon, we're going to release a special episode on the 05-06 season. Now, I recorded the first part of this with Mike Booth last week, and we should be doing the second part soon. Got some great memories to look back there. It was really good to chat about the first half of the season. Interesting to look how, you didn't realise how we struggled at times towards the start of that season. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll be doing that. Me and Dan are going to do an episode next Friday when the EFL fixtures are announced, which will look at the games we face this season. And if obviously the live streaming's been done, we'll talk about the Workington friendly as well. Actually, be good to talk about how some of the new signings actually played in that game. Me and Dan obviously are going to do that kit special as well. and maybe look at getting a couple more specials done in the next month or so. The aim once the season starts, by the way, is to maybe try and do a preview episode each week and an episode looking at the game as well. So before each match, we'll see what we can get done. We're going to try and do some season previews as well, aren't we, Dan? Before the season starts.
Yeah, I know we've had contact with a couple of other podcasts from other teams and divisions, so we'll probably look at early September doing a preview edition. Yeah,
what we might try and do is we might try and do the preview episode with me, you and Mike all discussing, so we can give our views, and we'll all look into a few clubs each and say how we think the league's going to turn out. We'll put our predictions together and see who's right at the end of the season. Based on my ones when I used to edit Hit the Bar, it's probably not going to be me. But yeah, so thanks again everyone for listening. If you've got any comments or feedback, or there's anything you'd like to suggest we discuss, please send them in via Twitter at Brunton Bugle, or by email to bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, including Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Please do give us a review. We really appreciate the excellent feedback we've had so far. I know you've been looking at a few of those, Dan. I've been really happy to see that.
Yeah, some 5-star reviews, so thanks very much to all the listeners for those.
Yeah, and I've been looking at the analytics, and we've got listeners all over the world. Do you want to hear some of the countries, Dan, before we go?
Yeah, there was some interesting ones.
So go on. We've got listeners in the UK, obviously, has got the most. United States. We've got one listener in Norway. I think we know who that is. An old friend of ours. Denmark, Netherlands, Australia, and they're the belting ones. We've got Germany, New Zealand, Canada, and Kenya. We've got a Kenyan listener. If you're the Kenyan listener, thank you for tuning in. We do
get
really
in touch with us.
Yes, get in touch. The Kenyan Nairobi Blues. That's what we want to hear from.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.